Hello, this is Angelia, and you are listening to or watching the podcast, Why You Do What You Do. The podcast that talks about human development and psychology to maybe help you figure out a little bit more about why you do what you do. And last time we were talking about Gandhi's influence, over in India with the nonviolent protesting and things, how he started a movement to free India from British rule. And eventually that, came to pass. So his, passive resistance did do some good. Um, and we're going to take up on middle age, a cultural construct. Until recently, middle adulthood was the least studied part of the lifespan because people just yeah, you're young, then you get older and you get old. So they wasn't worried about middle age so much. The middle years were considered a relatively uneventful hiatus between the more dramatic changes of young adulthood and old age. Now that the baby boom generation is in middle age, research on that period is booming, and some of them are even in old age. My husband is in the youngest area of the baby boomers, in the early 60s. I missed it. I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm in the late 60s. But my father's in the top of the boomers who, they're in their 80s. So that's a pretty, big generation there between the 60s and 80s. In the United States, the 45 to 60-year-old population is expected to reach 80 million. This is the best educated and most affluent cohort ever to reach middle age anywhere, and it is changing our perspective on the importance and meaning of that time of life. Because, the millennials, I've heard, my children say, the boomers won't retire, so we can't get their jobs. Whereas before, old folks, 65, we were retiring, now we got folks working in their 70s, 80s, and older. And I personally say if you can do it, do it. But I do realize that limits opportunities for younger people coming up, so there's not really a good answer there. My goodness. The term middle age came into use in Europe and the United States around the turn of the 20th century as life expectancy began to lengthen. Because before that, you were lucky if you made it into your 60s and older. Today, in industrial societies, middle adulthood is considered to be a distinct stage of life with its own societal norms, roles, opportunities, and challenges. So people are now realizing, being an older adult is different from being a younger adult and from being old. Thus, oh my goodness, I don't know whether this is a hair or a piece of dust got in my eye. Something's not good right here is all I know. My goodness. Thus, some scholars describe middle age as a socially constructed concept with culturally ascribed meaning because each country is different and there are different things they expect of folks in middle age. Some traditional societies, such as upper caste Hindus in rural India and the Kusi in Kenya, do not recognize the middle stage of adulthood between youth and old age at all. So, you're just an adult and then you get old. In other parts of India and in Japan, maturation and aging are thought of primarily as social processes involving relationships and roles, rather than in terms of chronological years and biological changes. So, your role would be the child going to school, then you would be the parent, earning the money, building the household, raising the children. And then you would be the older person, maybe helping babysit the grandkids or, doing your retirement, specific steps, specific roles that you have at certain ages. Ironically, as medical and nutritional advances have opened up unprecedented second half of life in more developed societies, anxiety about physical and other losses has become a major theme in popular descriptions of middle age. And you hear that, my arm, that's one of the things, that my arm got too short to read this small print, so I had to get these. you know, in a youth-oriented culture, adults' expectations for these years may be influenced more by images in literature and the media than by what is going on in their own bodies and minds. Because, the media is all about youthfulness and youngness, and, so a lot of, I have no middle-aged folks like this. They want to appear young, they want to look young. They're working out, they're, keeping up with the makeup, hairstyles, and things that are going on now, and, okay, that's very good for you. But you're not fooling any of us. Just saying. We can see that you're middle-aged. The suppleness of the skin will tell. But a lifespan development perspective presents a more balanced, more complex picture. Middle age could be a time, but not only even primarily of decline and loss, but also of growth, because we grow as people. In middle age, you know a lot more than you did when you were 20 years old. And if you don't, you need to start reading more or something. I don't know. I know a heck of a lot more than I did when I was 20 years old. The concept of plasticity suggests that what people do and how they live has much to do with how they age. So, again, some people decide they're old, and so they park themselves in the couch or whatever, and so they are old, and some people think, well, I'm still going, so I'm just going to keep going, and so they do, and then they're not as old as somebody who's, like I said, plopped on the couch. When is middle age? There is no consensus on specific biological or social events that mark the beginning and end of middle age. So, there's no teller specifically. Yeah, everybody's different. With improvements in health and length of life, the subjective upper limits of middle age are rising. Like the sayings how the, 60's the new 40. My husband said that the other day because he's 60. So, 60's the new 40. 1/3 of Americans in their 70s and half of those between 65 and 69 think of themselves as middle aged. So, what used to be considered old now is considered, folks in middle age. Like when the first book I read, I think it was in high school psychology class, they was talking about the different, ages and stages, like 0 to 10. Excuse me, you're a child, you're growing. 10 to 20, you're studying, that's your job to become a grown-up. You're a young adult between 20 and 30. And then in 30 to 60, you were considered middle age. And then 60 to 90, you were considered advancing years, and definitely old age once you got past 90. So the view on that has changed a little bit in the past 40 years or so. Middle age in U.S. society is increasingly a state of mind, because you are as old as you think you are, or you are as young as you think you are. Your state of mind has a lot to do with it. In this book, we define middle adulthood in chronological terms as the years between ages 40 and 65. But this definition is arbitrary, of course, because some people, say, oh, the 40's not middle-aged, I'm still young and still raising kids, and, some people are like, oh, 65's not old, I'm just barely, able to retire, and, so everyone's different. Middle age also can be defined contextually, and the two definitions may differ. One context is the family. A middle-aged person is sometimes described as one with grown children and or elderly parents. And we have both. Me and my husband, we're in the sandwich generation. We have elderly parents that we're helping take care of, and then we have grown children who are, you know, still sometimes needs from stuff from mom and dad. Yet today, some people in their 40s and beyond are still raising young children, and some adults at any age have no children at all. Those with grown children may find the nest emptying or filling up again, because nowadays a lot of people coming back to the nest. You know, my one of my sons got divorced, and so he had to move in with his mamaw. I have an oldest son who's still living with us. You know, so sometimes they come back. Age also has a biological aspect. A 50-year-old who has exercised regularly is likely to be biologically younger than a 35-year-old whose most strenuous exercise is clicking the remote control. Still, typically there are important differences between the issues and tasks of early and late middle age. Oh man. The meaning of middle age. The meaning of middle age varies with health, gender, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, cohort, and culture. And that means, the generation you're born in when they say cohort. Most middle-aged people in the United States today are in good physical, cognitive, and emotional shape, more so than any previous generation, and feel good about the quality of their lives. And that's most people. Certainly there's always exception to the rules before anybody, wants to jump on that one. The middle years are marked by growing individual differences based on prior choices and experiences, as well as on genetic makeup. So the choices you've made in life are going to get you to where you're going to end up in middle age. And also your genetics are going to play a part in that too. The middle years are marked by growing individual differences based on prior choices, and we did that. Some middle-aged people can run a marathon. Others get winded climbing up a steep stairway, and I'd be one of those. Heart and lungs just can't do it anymore. When I was young, I used to run around like a little wild thing, but not so much anymore. Some have a sharper memory than ever. Others feel their memory beginning to slip, and I do. I hate that. It's like you knew something, you were gonna do something, and you forgot it. And I complain, and my dad's like, "Well, this is how everybody is. You're just now catching up with everybody else." It's like, well, if that's true, then I don't like it. Some, like Gandhi, are at the height of creativity or careers. Others have gotten a slow start or have reached dead ends. And I know I got a slow start in doing what I wanted to do. I didn't really start doing it until I was in my 40s, because I didn't get to go to college, and I was in my late 30s when I got to go to college, and then it was really too expensive. I had to find a different way of doing it, and then I found out by doing online schools couldn't get a license here in my state. So I didn't end up where I wanted to, but I did have a ministry, outreach, and education business that we worked with hundreds of people, and then we had a charity that we started and also worked with hundreds of people. So I feel like that meme, I was talking about that earlier in another video. I feel like I didn't end up where I wanted to go, but I feel like I ended up where I needed to be. So Still others dust off mothballed dreams or pursue new goals. And I've taken back up, writing and arts and crafts and things that I used to do when I was younger and really enjoyed, but just didn't have so much time to do it when I had, young children I had to raise, and I was a single mom for 8 years. I had to work and help them with homework and all that, so I didn't have a lot of time to do anything creative at all. My most creative thing was, whatever I would cook. So middle age is often filled with heavy responsibilities and multiple demanding roles. Responsibilities and roles that most adults feel competent to handle. Most adults, there's always exceptions. There are people who can't handle their roles once they hit middle adulthood. They can't handle raising children, when they're older. And I'll tell you, teenagers can get you goat. I had one that was heading down a bad road, and there had to be some interventions, to get him back on the right road. Running households, departments, or enterprises, launching children, and perhaps caring for aging parents, or starting new careers. I ran a couple departments at a couple businesses, and then I was running, my own ministry and running a charity. This one lady was talking to somebody. She's like, she's the boss, and that's the first time I ever heard that about I'm the boss. Oh wow, I hadn't really thought about myself as the boss. So that was a new thing that I had to think about. I'm the boss. And with that comes responsibilities, because you can't be super nice to everyone all the time because people will run over you. Sometimes you have to be a little firm, and most people can handle that. Some people cave under pressure and they can't handle that. They fall apart, and then you can't trust them with important things. So, and getting your children out into the world, that's your most important job. That's your most important job. So, you've got to give them a good foundation for them to build on so that they can have a good life. So if you're having problems, you're raising them young folks, you need to go talk to somebody. Don't be ashamed about it. Go get you some counseling and get your head straightened out so you can deal with your, teenagers or tweens, whatever the case may be. So again, you got to care for elderly parents sometimes. My mother-in-law, she's talking about she needs to go into a home because none of us can be there for her all the time. We have lives, we have things, we have jobs, and no one can be there for her all the time. And she's getting to the point where now she's falling in things, and she realizes, we suggested this a few years ago, but she wasn't down with that yet. But she finally conceded that she needs someone there all the time. She had a button, and she's had to push the button, and she had the police come pick her up out of the floor, and my husband had to come home from work early and pick her up out of the floor, and she needs people to take her places and do things. So she's conceded that she needs to be in assisted living where someone can be there for her 24/7, so she has constant care, because we just can't afford to do it. And now my father, he's had a few incidents where he has fallen, but he went through rehab and has come back out. He still goes out, drives his car and gets breakfast, still does, light housework and fixes food for himself and things like that. If he gets motivated, he'll, do some laundry, but, I've been helping him with that, and me and my son go over and bring him food once a week, and help him with laundry or whatever, and then me and my husband will go over there and bring him groceries and things of that nature once a week. Then I have an uncle who lives in the city who comes over there once a week, so like every other day somebody's there checking on Dad and making sure things are okay in the house. But he has a sister who'd rather not have him there. She'd rather have him somewhere else so she didn't have to worry about him, but that's her anxiety, not his reality. So at the same time, many middle-aged adults, having made their mark and raised their children, have an increased feeling of freedom and independence, because you do. If you don't have to raise the kids, if you're not actively doing that, you have more time for you, and you can do things that you didn't get to do earlier, that you maybe gave up on because you just didn't have the time to do it. So middle age is a time where you can pick back up where you left off, so to speak. You've got your progeny out there. Your DNA is going to be carried into the future. So now it's time for you to go back to spending some time for you. Many experience a heightened sense of success and control in work and social relationships, along with a more realistic awareness of their limitations and of outside forces they cannot control. So, I had some success, in my 40s and 50s when I was doing things, in my late 30s. Um, and I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed going out in the community, working with other, ministries and agencies and things, and helping people. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed teaching. I taught for our local school system, and I taught for other agencies, and in my own office. I really enjoyed that, and so I feel like, I did have some success, and it depends, what you think success is. If you judge success by money, then no, I was never really too successful, because I was scraping, by. I wasn't super successful in the money department, but I was in charge, and I could control, when I worked, when I spent time with the kids, so that worked for me, finding that balance. And I did make time for friends, go out and do things with friends and go places, and that enriched my life. And I did realize at a certain point that I was not so well anymore. I had a heart episode. They don't want to call them heart attacks anymore. They want to call them heart episodes. So my first heart episode floored me, took me to the ground. It hurt so bad, and it hurt for weeks after that. I was down on the couch for weeks, and I was dizzy. Like anytime I get up, the room would spin. And so I realized I'm not going to be able to hop in my car and drive out to, another end of town, and teach people things, when I can't even stand up, and walk a few feet without feeling dizzy. So I had to make a decision, and I made my decision, and I had hoped to hand things off, but it didn't work out that way. But now, there's YouTube, so I'm still here, doing a little preaching and coaching and teaching. So I can do in my own home what I used to do out in the community. It's not the same, it's really not, but it's what I can do, so it's what I am doing. I'm doing better. I had another heart episode, and I believe that was my own fault for overindulging, and sometimes we got to watch the diets. But that first one made me realize I'm not immortal. I can't keep burning the candle at both ends. And so I had to retire physically. I mean, I was not that great. They talk about the halt and the lame. I wasn't lame, but I was halt to begin with. By the time I was in my late 30s, I mean, I was not in good shape. And by the time I was in my 40s, I was definitely disabled. I had to walk with a cane. I was having balance problems. I was falling and hurting myself. And, the back, the hip, the knees, the feet, basically gone. I had to have reconstructive surgery on my hand, because as a clerical worker, I'd lost my pincher grasp. I had carpal tunnel syndrome. I had ganglionic cysts in my arm. So I was disabled, by the time I was in my 40s. But, when you have a heart episode and hit the ground, and, the pain is so bad, you're like, don't even want to move. You don't even want to extend your arm because it hurts too much. And that's where I was. So I realized I had to retire. I just could not do it anymore. And that was hard for me. That was hard for me because I had worked all my life to build this. And, 17 years, working in the, works of heart, ministry, outreach, and education. I did that for 17 years. And then for 9 years, I was executive director of Healing Families Lives, the charity. And just to have that pulled out from under you because you just can't physically even do it anymore, it's humbling. It really is. They say God gives you what you need, and maybe that's what I needed. Maybe I need to slow down, and be a little more thoughtful about some things, because before I was just going at it, going through the processes. And now I think a little bit more. I read, ahead a little bit more, and I think a little bit more about, well, what does this mean? What do I really want to convey to my, listeners or watchers? And I think, well, a lot of people have this problem. Maybe some people, maybe I need to convey this in this way, because I already know what this means to me. I'm thinking about what this means to average Jane and Joe out there. So sometimes middle adulthood kick your butt. But it also can give you freedom, to do some things that you love. Middle adulthood can be a time of reevaluating goals and aspirations and how well they have been fulfilled, and deciding how best to use the remaining part of the lifespan. Because let's face it, someday our clock's going to stop ticking, to put it nicely. So from your middle-aged time to your old-age time till the day your clock stops ticking, what are you going to do with your life? You need to know, you need to decide, and you can take it one day at a time. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to have like a plan and a goal. That's helpful, if you want to do that, especially if you gave up your dreams when you were younger. And a lot of us give up our dreams in our late teens, 20s, when a lot of us get pregnant, and so then we are a parent and we have to raise a family. Not everyone does planned pregnancies, so sometimes we had to give things up to raise a family. So if you want to think about if you gave things up, then take them back up. And then also you can think about your parents who might have gave things up, and that might have had something to do with some of the bitterness they may have had towards you, because it's like my mother told me in her day, if you got pregnant you had to get married. So if she had aspirations and goals, she might have had to put those on hold so she could raise her family. So think about what you missed out on. You think, because sometimes we start doing a thing and realize we didn't miss nothing. I've talked to people from my past and realized I didn't miss nothing. But you can always go back and do what you left off. Pick up where you left off, even if it's been 40 years or whatever, and you become fulfilled with your life. Because middle age is not the end of life. You're not old, and you don't have to sit on the couch and be an old person and do nothing. Because I'm old now. That's not what you have to do. Physical development, physical changes. Use it or lose it. Research bears out the wisdom that popular creed, and that's true. If you're not exercising, your body's gonna get soft. If you're not, like singers, you do their voice practice, you're gonna lose your voice. Excuse me. Anytime you're not using a thing, it's getting soft, so to speak. So keep that in mind. Although some physiological changes are direct results of biological aging and genetic makeup, behavioral and lifestyle factors dating from youth can affect the likelihood, timing, and extent of physical change. It's like, I don't know if you remember the comedian Sinbad was talking about diabetes, and he said, this thing didn't just come on you. It just didn't appear one day. This started all the way back to when you were scarfing down sugar daddies when you were 9 years old. And that's true. By the same token, health and lifestyle habits in the middle years influence what happens in the years beyond. So, that middle age piece, when you're young, you could get away with a lot. We ran, burned the candles at both ends. Some of us drank and ate excessively, and that was fine. But once you hit middle age, that metabolism drops quite a bit. So all that sugar you used to eat, all that fat you used to eat is going to catch up with you. And you're not going to be able to do it anymore because your body is not burning the calories. Even if you're still active, it's not burning the calories like it used to because it's not growing anymore. You know, it's in a plateau. So, in your younger days, most colas, if you read the sugar content on that, contain from 110 to 140% of your US RDA of sugar. Now, I don't know about you, but I know I can't burn off 110 to 140% of my sugar a day. I can't do it. So that's why my A1C was going up. And, you know, one of my things is I love cheese. I love all kinds of cheese. But my arteries don't so much. And yours don't either once you get to that point. And neither does your waistline. So the cheese, the bread, the fattening meat, hamburgers. I had one doctor, well, I'll call her that. She was quack. But anyway, the first thing you've got to stop eating hamburgers. You got to stop eating hamburgers. And I'm like, I don't eat hamburgers. So, you know, everybody assumes things about folks. But, yeah, when you get middle age, you're going to have to cut back on some of the bad stuff. You might want to up the fish oil intake. You might want to use sugar-free. I've discovered that I'm alright with sugar-free cookies. I'm alright with sugar-free. They have a ice cream. I got sugar-free chocolate, you know, because I'm not the kind of person to deprive myself. I'm really not. So, you know, if I can get it in a way that's good for me, I'm still going to get it. You know, if I can get that sugar-free chocolate, I'm going to get it, and I'm going to have some. You know, you might not be able to have like you used to have because they got that chocolate liqueur in there that, you know, if you eat too much of that, you just take more. You better not eat too much of that because it's going to backfire on you. So, you know, people who limit their exposure to the sun can minimize wrinkling and avoid skin cancer. And people who are physically active can retain muscle strength, a powerful predictor of physical cognition in old age. So, you know, if you keep the guns pumping, you know, then you're going to be more with it in old age than if you're laying out on the couch, you know, becoming a big blob, you know, which a lot of people do when they hit middle age, and they're sitting there and eating the snacks, and, you know, they're not burning off the snacks anymore because their metabolism slowed down and they're not doing the exercise, and that's when a lot of people start having the heart attacks, the strokes, and, you know, things of that nature. So that's where I'm going to leave you for today. I hope that helped you figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. Thanks for watching. Please like and share this educational program so we can spread it around the world. If you want to help me out, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to help me out even more, go to my Patreon page and become a patron. That's all for now. Until next time.